Hello and welcome to the Applying for the Accommodation Bursary 23-24 information session with me, Angelina Lavelle from the Disability Service. So we're going to talk about what the Accommodation Bursary is, how to know if you're eligible, how to apply for it, the supporting documentation you'll need, important dates to remember, and the student experience from past students who received the Accommodation Bursary before. So what is the bursary? The Trinity Development and Alumni support the Disabled Student Accommodation Bursary each year by donating money to support disabled students in financial need with their accommodation costs. So you are being invited to apply for this means-tested bursary. Means-tested means that it will be available to those whose financial circumstances render them eligible. Am I eligible? So there are two eligibility criteria. The first is that you have accepted an offer of campus accommodation via the special considerations application route. So that is accepting an offer for on-campus accommodation, Trinity Hall or Kavanagh Court through special considerations. The second criteria is that you must be in financial need. So what does in financial need look like? The special rate of SUSI is the income threshold used for bursaries like this one. However, we acknowledge that people with disabilities incur more costs on a yearly basis simply due to the fact that they're disabled. So, the cost of disability. Based on a research paper submitted to the Department of Social Protection, the cost of disability on average per year is €11,734. This cost includes costs relating to equipment, aids, appliances, mobility, transport, communications, medication, care and assistive services, and additional living expenses. So the special rate of SUSI for a family with 4 or less dependent children is $25,000. So adding the yearly cost of disability to that, $11,734, the accommodation bursary's income threshold will be €36,734 for a family of 4 or less dependent children. So if you fall outside of that 4 or less dependent children in the household, you can see the table here will tell you what the income thresholds are for your family situation. So if there's between 4 and 7 dependent children in the household, it's $39,134, and if there's 8 or more dependent children in the household, it's $41,436. So that is the special rate of SUSI plus the yearly cost of disability. If you want to look into the special rate of SUSI in more detail, you can do that on SUSI's website, susi.ie, and that will tell you what those figures are without the yearly cost of disability, or you can minus the €11,734 to find out what the special rate of SUSI is for each of those family situations. So how to apply? First, you're going to complete an online application form. And second, within that form, you're going to upload supporting documentation. So they're the two most important things to know for applying for this bursary. So I'm going to talk about two scenarios here to give you an idea of what supporting documentation it is I need from you. So scenario A, and this is on our website if you need it. Scenario A is if you're living with your parents or guardians outside of term time in 2022. So some students during term time will have student accommodation somewhere in Dublin, or maybe they've lived on campus in 2022, whatever the case may be. Your home address relates to where you live outside of term time. So if that's with your parents, and that was with your parents in 2022, this is the scenario for you. There's two options within this scenario. It's really important to remember the documentation that I'm looking for this accommodation bursary, the financial documentation I need is from 2022. So if you were living with your parents or guardians outside of term time in 2022 and you were in receipt of SUSI for the 22-23 academic year, what I need from you is 3 months bank statements in all accounts in your name. So I want your current account statements, your savings account if you have one, if you have a Revolut, if you have a credit union. I want the bank statements for each of those accounts. And that's 3 recent bank statements. So we're June, it's the end of June now, so April, May, June are the bank statements that I'm looking for 3 recent bank statements of yours for all accounts in your name. As well as that, I'd like your SUSI letter from the academic year 22-23, all pages of that if possible. If you can't find your physical letter of your SUSI letter, you can log on to your SUSI account on the SUSI website, and you can either download or screenshot there where it tells me that you were awarded the SUSI grant in 22-23. The reason I'm looking for this past academic year, 22-23, is because the income that your SUSI was assessed on was 2022's income, which is the year that we need for this bursary. So if you're living with your parents in 2022 and you were on a SUSI grant, I want 3 recent bank statements, so April, May, June of this year, plus your 22-23 SUSI letter. If you were living with your parents or guardians outside of term time in 2022 and were not on SUSI, I'm still going to need 3 months bank statements from you. If you were working in 2022, I want your statement of liability for 2022. If you were on any social welfare payments in 2022, I want your 2022 social welfare balancing statement. And if you were self-employed in 2022, I want your 2022 notice of self-assessment. That will tell me what you earned in 2022. As well as that, I will need your parents' financial documentation. So if your parents were employed, I need their 2022 statement of liability. If your parents were unemployed or on social welfare, I want their 2022 social welfare balancing statement. If they were self-employed in 2022, I want their notice of self-assessment for 2022. So it's important to note that if you're looking for your supporting documentation, you need to log on to your Revenue online account to do this. If it's your parents' information that I need, your parents will need to log on to their own Revenue to download those documents for you. You won't be able to access that from your own account. Your parents will have to go into their own account. So to sum scenario A up again, there's 2 options here. If you are living with your parents in 2022 and you were a SUSI student, I want 3 months bank statements and your SUSI letter from 22-23. If you were not on SUSI, I want your 3 months recent bank statements. I want your financial documentation if you were working, if you were on social welfare, or if you were self-employed. And I want your parents' financial documentation if they were employed, if they were on social welfare, and if they were self-employed. If you yourself were not working, were not on social welfare, and were not self-employed in 2022, well then there's no financial documentation I'll need from you. So moving on then to scenario B. Scenario B are for students who were financially independent in 2022. This means you were over the age of 23 and living independently from your parents or guardians outside of term time. So if that is you and you were on SUSI in 22-23, I need the exact same thing from you. 3 months recent bank statements, April, May, June of this year, plus your SUSI letter from 22-23, because that income was based on allocation was based on your income from the year 2022. So if you were on SUSI and financially independent, 3 months bank statements and your SUSI letter. If you were financially independent in 2022 and were not on a SUSI grant for 22-23, I still want your 3 months bank statements. I want your financial documentation, whether that be you were employed on social welfare or self-employed. I will also need a recent utility bill from you and proof of lease or mortgage from you, both of those 2 things in your name, so that you can show me that you were living independently in 2022. Also, if you had a spouse or partner living with you, I'll also need their financial documents. So I'll need their statement of liability for 2022 if they were working. I'll need their social welfare balancing statement for 2022 if they were on social welfare. And I'll need their notice of self-assessment if they were self-employed in 2022. So to go over this one again, if you're financially independent in 2022, meaning you were over the age of 23 and living independently from your parents or guardians, and on SUSI, I need your SUSI letter and 3 months recent bank statements from you. If you were not on SUSI and financially independent in 2022, I want your 3 months bank statements, I want your financial documentation, I want a recent utility bill in your name, I want proof of your lease or your mortgage in your name, and if you had a spouse or partner, I'll also need their financial documentation. Again, all of these things can be found on revenues on your online revenue account. This information, scenario A and scenario B, is on our website. If you navigate to tcd.ie/disability, if you click on student supports and scroll down to applying for a room, you will see information about the accommodation bursary down the end of that web page. So applications will shortly be opening. The application form will open at 9 a.m. on Friday, June 30th, and it will close at 5 p.m. on July 21st. So you're going to have 3 weeks to gather documentation and complete the form. The link to the form, if you need to find that, is in the email that was sent to you to invite you to apply for this bursary. Only students who were offered a room via special considerations were sent this email, as these people are the only ones who are eligible or who meet one of the 2 eligibility criteria. The form is only going to accept 1 response, so my suggestion is to look for your supporting documentation first, gather all of that, then complete the form and upload the documentation within the form. As you will only have 1 chance to complete it, you can't get past the upload documentation section without uploading something. So have your supporting documentation before you start the form. Don't be too worried about, or if you're not sure whether you've uploaded all of the supporting documentation needed from you. I will be checking on applications throughout the application process, between June 30th and July 21st, and any students who I feel have uploaded the wrong documentation or not enough documentation, if I have the time, I will be contacting you, depending on where you are in between that period, 30th of June to July 21st. I will be contacting you and telling you that I need something else from you, or that you've uploaded something, the wrong thing, and could I get something else. I will be helping students where I can. And what I want students to do is to email me at askds@tcd.ie to ask any questions that you have about your supporting documentation. I can meet with students if they need to look at your personal situation and to go through the documentation that I feel that I'll need from you to get a full look at this bursary. Okay, so here on the screen you'll see 2 quotations from past students who received the accommodation bursary and how helpful it is to them. I'm not going to read these out. You can pause the video here if you'd like to read those. They're also available on the same webpage that I mentioned previously, tcd.ie/disability. Navigate to student supports, navigate down to applying for a room, and on the bottom of that webpage you'll see these quotations under the accommodation bursary section. There's also a 3rd one on the website as well, just to give you an idea of how helpful the bursary is to students in financial need. So thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, please send us an email to askds@tcd.ie and I will be happy to help you. Thank you.